Greetings and welcome to the initial broadcast of the Ole Miss Choral Symposium. I'm Don Trott, Director of Choral Activities here at the University of Mississippi. We are very proud to sponsor this special presentation, Performing Renaissance Music, a symposium on historical performance, with our headliner, Dr. Dennis Shrock. We both have a common interest in performance practice. In fact, it was while I was a graduate student at the University of Oklahoma that Dennis introduced me to such studies. What was going to be an in-person offering during the summer of 2020 has become a virtual presentation due to the pandemic. But we now feel this mode of sharing of information will actually be of greater benefit to so many more people. If you are interested in the how-to and why of performing Renaissance music, then this is the perfect viewing for you. What follows is an introduction to what will be 5 one-hour videos that will debut the week of June 28th, 2021. Please mark your calendars and follow our progress by joining our Facebook page, Ole Miss Choral Symposium. On behalf of the University of Mississippi, it is now my great pleasure to introduce to you Dr. Dennis Shrock.
Thank you, Dr. Trott. I've divided elements of composition that affect performance of music from the Renaissance era into 5 categories. The first is entitled Sources and Forces. Sources, comparing original manuscripts and printings with present editions, and forces dealing with the kinds and numbers of singers and instruments we might use in our performances. The second category, Sound and Pitch, deals with the timbre or quality of sound expected of our singers and instruments, and the pitch levels employed in our performances. The third category, Meter and Tempo, explores original mensuration signs, or meter signatures, and how they determine tactus and meter today, with special emphasis on the very important feature of syncopation. Tempo considerations deal with the character of music, tempo flexibility, and tempo proportions. The fourth category, Phrasing and Text Underlay, which is perhaps the most consequential aspect of the performance practices, deals with the Renaissance-era emphasis on natural text declamation, organic phrase shapes, and logical alignment of text with rhythms. The fifth category, Ornamentation and Expression, underscores the prevalence of ornamentation during the era and the very, very important consideration of expression. I'll summarize these 5 categories here and now in preparation for the 5 forthcoming individual videos. And besides me talking about the music, you'll see supportive imagery and hear examples of the performance styles. Everything I say and we do is, of course, based on how-to material from primary sources of the Renaissance era. That is, the material and recommendations are from people of the era who have written in rather precise terms how the music of the time should be performed. And there is a great amount of this primary source material available to us, much of it excerpted and quoted in the GIA book, Performing Renaissance Music. As I collected and read the primary sources for the book, I was struck by the similar aesthetic concepts and ideals between music and the other arts, the paintings, architecture, sculpture, and printed imagery. It was clear to me that the music of the time was considered to be at the same high artistic level as all the other art forms. The music was just as rich and vibrant as the following. The Piccolomini Library in Siena, built in 1492 to house the collection of books and manuscripts owned by Pope Pius II, and decorated between 1503 and 1508 with vibrant frescoes that, as you can see, cover every inch of the ceiling and walls. Josquin de Prez was composing at this time and might well have visited the library and been influenced by the imagery. The Chapel Royal at Hampton Court in London, built in the 1530s by King Henry VIII to serve the royal family. Its rich blue ceiling would have certainly been noticed by Thomas Tallis, who performed his music in the chapel. Michelangelo's sculpture of the Pieta, carved between 1498 and 1499, when Michelangelo was 23, and the sculpture considered so beautiful, it was placed in St. Peter's at the Vatican. Josquin was a singer in the chapel during this time, so he would definitely have seen the sculpture. And Michelangelo's sculpture of David, perhaps the most famous and frequently visited sculpture in the world. It was begun in 1501 by the 26-year-old Michelangelo for the Palazzo Vecchio in Florence, where at the time the composers Philippe Verdelot and Jacques Arcadelt were living and composing. Beyond these, and furthermore, the music of the Renaissance was considered to be just as dazzling as the clothing depicted in, for instance, the Ghent altarpiece of the St. Bavo Cathedral in Belgium, which was painted from 1420 to 1432 by the brothers Hubert and Jan van Eyck. You can see here Christ the King in the upper center panel, the Virgin Mary and John the Baptist flanking on either side, and angels singing further on the left and playing instruments further on the right. Guillaume Dufay, born in Belgium, might have been singing or playing one of the instruments. And the music of the time was also just as elaborate and decorative as the images in the Mira Monumenta, now housed in the Getty Museum in Los Angeles. The images in the book were drawn in the mid-16th century, the time of Palestrina, Giovanni Gabrieli, and Orlando di Lasso, and they feature extraordinarily elaborate calligraphy and fanciful illuminations of flowers, fruit, and insects. Or, finally, the printing of music, such as this manuscript of Josquin's Missa Pange Lingua. This page of the soprano and alto parts of the Kyrie, being so luxurious in decoration, was not unusual during the Renaissance era. Many manuscripts of the time were equally as decorative. All of the artworks are rich in color and overtly expressive. But the Renaissance music we hear today, composed at the same time as the painting, sculptures, and imagery, is different, very different. The music is flat, dull, and restrained. It is as if the music has been covered up by centuries of dust and grime that conceal its vibrant colors. More precisely, centuries of misunderstandings about performance have obscured the beauty of the music and stripped it of its rich colors and expressiveness. We have been constricted by clefs and pitch levels that we see in modern-day publications, by adherence to immutable tempos and static phrasing, by a lack of attention to natural declamation of text, and, most regrettable, by a fear of being expressive. However, by learning from and by implementing the practices put forth in the many primary sources of the time, we learn about flexible scorings and transpositions, about the character of the music, about determining tempo rates and tempo changes, about the importance of rhythm shaped by natural declamation, and by an underlying commitment to expressiveness. By performing the music in new, historically informed ways, we are able to clean off the dirt and grime of past misunderstandings and restore the music to its natural beauty. And as a result, we can better appreciate the music and create a desire to perform more of it with greater frequency. We have the ability to experience the music as we do the paintings of Leonardo da Vinci and the sculptures of Michelangelo, as well as all the other expressive imagery of the time. We can hear and experience the music in the same way as we can see this illustration of Psalm 70 from the Catherine of Cleves Book of Hours, compiled and illustrated in 1440, and now housed in the Morgan Library in New York City. Or this chordiform chansonnier in the shape of a heart, decorated between 1460 and 1477. Housed today in the Bibliothèque Nationale in Paris, it contains chansons by Dufay, Binchois, Ockeghem, and Bunois. To make our performances of the music comparable to and as exciting as the artworks, we now turn to and consider the 5 categories of performance. For our sources of music, we almost always perform from modern-day editions that have been updated in terms of clefs, clef names, meter signatures, and notational values. We don't perform from choir books, such as this of Antoine Brumel's Missa de Beata Virgine, or we don't perform from editions that show large note values, such as seen here in William Byrd's Ave Verum Corpus. Instead, we generally see note values reduced as here. Moreover, we logically assume that the C meter signature stands for common time or 4 notes per measure, the quarter note getting the beat. But this is actually a gross misunderstanding. The C represents the lowest of the 4 mensuration signs of the medieval and Renaissance seen here, tempus imperfectum prollatio minor. As understood throughout the Renaissance era, the C signifies 2 beats per measure, with a half note getting the beat. There was no 4/4 or common time during the Renaissance, and there is virtually no instance when the quarter note in present-day editions is the pulse or tactus of the music. For the forces of performance, we learned that music during the Renaissance era was often made accessible to varying groups of performers by equally various modes of singing and playing according to what one might have available. The practice was referred to as si placet, which means as you please, and many title pages of scores acknowledge the variety of forces. Such is the case with John Dowland's first book of songs or airs that states, as you can see in the middle of the page, the music is, quote, so made that all the parts together, or either of them severally, may be sung to the lute, or Orpherion, or viola da gamba. We can take, therefore, a piece such as Hans Leo Hassler's ballad Tanzen und Springen, which is scored for SSATB voices, and we can perform it with the top 3 voices if we have only treble voices on hand, or with the bottom 3 voices if we have low voices available. Since the ballad has 2 verses, as was quite common, we've opted to present it to you in 2 manners. The top 3 voices singing the first verse, and the bottom 3 voices singing the second verse. You can observe from the notes that are circled that we've ornamented the repeats of the music, and I'll discuss ornamentation later in the video. We've also joined everyone together for a recap of the music's final phrase. But before you see and hear the singers, I think it's important to mention that they have recorded themselves individually in their homes across the country. The soprano in Los Angeles, the alto in Indianapolis, the tenor in Washington, D.C., and the bass in Fort Worth. Other singers you'll see and hear are in Georgia, New Jersey, Maryland, and New Mexico. To make sure that the performance practices are coordinated, I sent the singers scores with all sorts of markings that would be unnecessary were we all together in one room, but that are necessary to keep everyone in alignment. This was not too challenging technically. The singers could follow the conducting video I sent them and sing together. But given the specific nature of the performance practices and their differences from standard modes of singing, it has been very challenging to accomplish necessary nuances through this virtual process. Nevertheless, we've done our best.
Tanzen und springen, singen und klingen, fa-la-la-la, fa-la-la-la, fa-la. Tanzen und springen, singen und klingen, fa-la-la-la, fa-la-la-la, fa-la. la la, fa la la la, fa la. Mit ihm spazieren und konversieren, freundlich zu scherzen, freut mich im Herzen für Silber und Gold. Fa la la la, fa la la, fa la, fa la la la, fa la la la, fa la la la, fa la la, fa la, fa la la la, fa la, fa la.
For sound and pitch, we learn from primary sources that the aural texture of the music was characterized by a unified timbre based on the consort principle. That is, when vocal music was accompanied by instruments, as it very often was, or when instruments performed alone, the performance was usually with a family or consort of like instruments, as in a family of recorders, gambas, or sackbuts. Pretorius depicts a family of recorders in this plate from his Syntagma Musicum, and Silvestro Ganassi depicts a group of performers playing recorders and a group of gambas behind them on the cover of his ornamentation treatise, Fontegara. The sound quality during the Renaissance, and this is hugely important, was the same from voice part to voice part, which means for us today that sopranos, altos, tenors, and basses all exhibit the same timbre. We also learned that the music was often transposed from its original pitch levels. The transpositions, like the scoring shown in Hassos, Tanzen und Springen, were flexible and adaptable to practical circumstances. Music scored for high voices could be sung by low voices, and pitch levels could be adjusted to accommodate the voices one had in an ensemble. We can, therefore, take a piece such as Claudin de Sermissy's chanson Languir me fait, which was originally scored for STTB, and transpose it lower or higher. When I first performed the chanson, I transposed it down a minor third and had it sung by the men of the Santa Fe Desert Chorale. For this current presentation here, I've transposed it up a major third so that it can easily be sung by SATB.
Languir me fait, sous ta voix renfoncée.
For meter and tempo, we begin to deal with elements of performance that have the greatest impact on the music and our appreciation of it. And we begin to understand the comparison between music and the other arts of the Renaissance era. Basic tempos were determined by the character of the music, by its purpose. For example, a sacred worship service or a secular dinner entertainment, and by the mood or sentiment of that purpose, a motet for Lent or for Easter, a ballad for dancing, or a madrigal expressing forlorn love. Moreover, tempos changed when the moods changed. As stated by Nicola Vicentino in his L'Antica Musica of 1555, a composition sung with changes of tempo is more pleasing in its variety than that which is sung unvaried. One should move the tempo to express the passion of the words. And Michael Pretorius says in his Syntagma Musicum of 1619, to use by turns now a slower, now a faster beat in accordance with the text of the music lends dignity and grace to a performance. For us today, a change of tempo can even be necessary. For example, in the English anthem, Rejoice in the Lord Alway, one cannot maintain the same tempo throughout without considerable frustration and displeasure. The first part of the anthem is to the text, Rejoice in the Lord alway, and again I say rejoice, which clearly suggests a fast tempo. The second part of the anthem, however, has the contrasting text, Let your softness be known unto all men, which suggests a slower or slow tempo. When modern-day performers try to take the second section in the same fast tempo as the opening section, which they do, the music doesn't make sense and one simply wants to avoid the anthem altogether. But the second section, taken at a slow tempo, reveals the anthem's innate expressive beauty. Here is the anthem with the first section complete at a fast tempo and the opening of the second section sung at a slow tempo. Meanwhile, the double bar you see that divides the two sections is in the anthem's original manuscript, but is unfortunately absent from virtually all current published editions.
Rejoice in the Lord, and again rejoice in the Lord, and again I say rejoice. Rejoice in the Lord always, and again I say rejoice. Rejoice in the Lord always, and again I say rejoice. And again I say rejoice. Again I say rejoice. Let your softness be known unto all men. Let your softness be known unto all men. The Lord is in us, Be careful for nothing, but in all prayer and supplication.
For the category of phrasing and text underlay, we come to the aspect of performance that is most overlooked and that most affects our appreciation of the music. We hear performances with no shape of phrases, a static drone such as Et in terra pax hominibus bone voluntatis, or with only 2 degrees of emphasis, as in the oft-heard amateurish rendition of I think that I shall never see a poem as lovely as a tree. We also see and feel obligated to perform awkward and nonsensical declamation of text, as printed in a supposedly respected edition of Josquin's Missa Pange Lingua. Here are the final tenor and bass phrases of the Kyrie, copied without much syllabic separation, as was common in the manuscripts of the Renaissance era, and without consideration of the rules for text underlay, which are clearly described in the primary sources of the time. No one during the Renaissance would have sung the text as seen here, with all of those notes sung to the final syllable of the text. Phrasing of music during the Renaissance was to be like phrasing in speech, with strong syllables and words placed on strong beats, and with final syllables always on final notes. Moreover, there were natural undulations of syllables and words, with rising and falling motions that moved toward particular points of emphasis. As said by Nicola Vicentino in his performance treatise of 1555, quote, "One should sing music to emulate the emphases and effects of an oration. For what effect would the orator make if he recited a fine speech without his pronunciations varying fast and slow, soft and loud? That would not move his hearers." And Michael Pretorius echoes this sentiment in his treatise of 1619, quote, "Almost everyone is aware of the displeasure of hearing an orator talk on and on in the same flat tone, rather than pronouncing with a rising or falling inflection as required by the text. If this is annoying to hear in speaking, it is even more the case with singing. Forming and shaping musical lines is important." So, syllables and words cannot be equally stressed, and phrases cannot be at one level of volume. When done so, the music suffers a deathly injury. Instead, the music must be performed with natural declamation of syllables and words, and with the shaping of phrases to points of emphasis. To accomplish the phrasing, Jacques Arcadelt's madrigal Il Bianco e Dolce Cigno is shown here with caret signs, like the letter V, at the points of emphasis or arrival in each phrase, and with decrescendo marks to indicate the unstressed syllables. The final category of ornamentation and expression is the most remote for performers today, since neither ornamentation nor expression are thought to be aspects of performance during the Renaissance era. To the contrary, most people think of ornamentation and expression as anathema to the ethos of Renaissance culture, and only appropriate in the Baroque era. However, there are many treatises of the Renaissance era that discuss ornamentation, and there are quite a few entirely devoted to the subject, including 8 treatises discussed in the book Performing Renaissance Music. All of these treatises, by the way, can be accessed in both their original and translated forms on the website IMSLP. An example of typical ornamental passages can be seen in Claudin de Sermicy's chanson, L'Anguille me fait, discussed and sung before without ornamentation. Adrien Petit-Coquelicot ornaments the soprano and bass parts of the chanson in his treatise of 1552. Here is his ornamented version of the soprano part, and here is the beginning measures with both the original unornamented melody and with Coquelicot's ornamentation below. The ornamentation is extensive, to say the least, and you'll have a chance to hear this ornamentation in a later video. For now, here is an ornamented version of the English madrigal Weep, O Mine Eyes by John Bennett. 3 fundamental guidelines governed the Renaissance musician's choice and placement of ornaments. 1, they are spread throughout the texture of the music and do not conflict with one another. 2, they consist mostly of passing tones. And 3, they are most abundant in repeated passages of music. Since Bennett's madrigal is in an ABB structure, A from measures 1 to 28, B from measures 29 to 43, and the repeat of B from measure 44 to 58. The second B will be much more ornamented than the first B. Ornaments obviously make the music more interesting and expressive, and that the placement of the ornaments aligns with expression of the text's character. And expression is also an aspect of tempo and phrasing. But expression is more. It is a character that motivates and is manifested in the articulation of rhythms and in subtle gradations of volume. Expression is what motivated the composer and what must motivate the performers. Nicola Vicentino, in the chapter of his 1555 treatise entitled Rules for Singing in Concert Any Kind of Composition, states, compositions differ according to the subject matter on which they are made. Thus, the singer must consider what the composer has in mind and express the music with diverse manners of singing. William Byrd concurs and writes in the preface to his Psalms, Songs, and Sonnets of 1611, "Only this I desire, that you will be as careful to express them as I have been in composing them. Otherwise, the best song that ever was made will seem harsh and unpleasant. For the well expressing of them, either by voices or instruments, is the life of our labors." And finally, Michael Pretorius says, since the orator's job is not just to decorate his speech with beautiful, pleasing, and lively words, but also to articulate clearly and to move the emotions of his hearers, so in the same manner, the singer should not merely sing, but should express artfully and engagingly so that the heart of the listener is touched and so that his emotions are moved. Expression is the alpha and omega of a composition, and it is what will take Renaissance-era music from the mundane to the magnificent, what will make the music more interesting to performers and more accessible to listeners. With expression as a motivator of performance, Renaissance music can be like Renaissance paintings, sculptures, architecture, and imagery. And like these other art forms, the music can be enjoyed by a vast segment of people, not just the elite. It is my hope that you make your Renaissance performances sound like the look of the many great artworks of the time, those that we've seen together already, and others that I leave now with you. The dome of the cathedral in Florence, the floor of the cathedral in Siena, this stained glass window in the Canterbury Cathedral, this page in the Gutenberg Bible, or this page depicting Psalm 104, verse 33, in the Mira Monumenta. You can see quoted on the bottom of the page, Cantabo Domino in vita mea. I will sing to the Lord as long as I live. Thank you. I hope you'll be interested in seeing the future, more developed videos. Here is Dr. Trott again.
Thank you, Dr. Shrock, and we look forward to the extended series, which will be offered free of charge. In this video, you heard several singers, and I would like to thank them. Luke Frells, Derek Gilmore, Jonathan Hatley, Stephanie Moore, Paul Neal, Kristen Dubinian-Smith, Mitzi Westra, and Yoran Zhao. Our organ and lute parts were provided by Jonathan Hatley. Our virtual choir video editor for the Hostler, Sermesi, the Anonymous Rejoice, and Arkadelt were edited by Andrew Berkowitz. The Bennett was edited by Jeff Reed of Taproot Audio Design and Charles Miles of the University of Mississippi. My thanks to all of them. In preparation for the upcoming series, you may want to purchase Dr. Shrock's book, Performing Renaissance Music, published by GIA Publications. It is the foundation from which these lectures are based and an incredible resource for you. Lastly, I again remind you to follow us on our Facebook page, Ole Miss Choral Symposium, and I hope you'll invite all of your friends. I look forward to updating you as we progress to the week of June 28th, when we broadcast our 5-part series on performing Renaissance music. On behalf of the University of Mississippi, I thank you for watching.